Alright, so the reason why I decided to press record on this video was that earlier today I sat down and really thought to myself, like, I need to share my story of how I got into this like digital online business space and how I really started my entrepreneurial journey. So hang tight, this is gonna be a good one. Now, back when I was 17 years old, I was just a young regular kid from the countryside of Denmark living in a small village. Like, I had normal friends, I went to a normal school, and people had just normal expectations of me. And it was sort of like life came with an unwritten roadmap. Like, go to school, get a job, and then get a paycheck. That was it. So the thing is, my dad is an electrician with his own business. So naturally, people just assumed that I would just follow his footsteps because that job was reliable, it was stable, and predictable. But deep inside me, I still thought to myself, like, this couldn't just be it. Like, there has to be more to life than just doing this. And to be honest, I couldn't shake the thought of me being 70 years old and still climbing ladders, pulling wires, and doing all this manual labor. And yes, I could become my own boss, but I would still trade time for money. Like, that feeling made me terrified. Like, I wanted freedom, but the thing was, like, I didn't know how I would get there. So eventually, I ended up taking an apprenticeship as an electrician, but outside of my dad's company to avoid the daddy's boy label. But you know what? That didn't make it any easier. The company that I worked with, they knew my dad's reputation, so they just treated me like a full-time electrician, even though I was just still an apprentice. And what made it even worse for me was that I had to sign this contract. And this contract said that if I didn't quit my job within the first 3 months, I would be locked in for 4.5 fucking years. 4.5 years of a life I already knew I didn't want it. And that almost felt like a life sentence to me. So now that the rules were laid out, I had 3 months to quit my job and escape this life, or else I would just get stuck. And all of a sudden, that was when I remembered that I have impulsively bought a copywriting course earlier that year. And you know what? I wasn't the best writer, but something clicked. This could be my way out. So I dove right into that course and started studying and practicing and just writing copy in general. And then I began preparing for the biggest conversation in my entire life. Because one night at dinner, I had to lay the whole game plan out for my parents. So I told them that I wanted to quit my apprenticeship and that I already invested in a course about copywriting and that I didn't want to pull wires for the rest of my life, but instead wanted to build something with my bare hands on my own. And you know, my dad, as an electrician himself, he wasn't thrilled about that idea, let's be honest. But to my surprise, I ended up negotiating that deal with them, which meant they gave me until August. And in other words, if I could find a way to make money, get clients with copywriting, I would stay on that path. If not, I would go straight back to the life that I hated. And the next day, I went to my boss' office, sat down in a chair in front of his desk, and then I told him that I wanted to quit the job I've just got. And from then, it was game on. I had no fallback. I had just time and pressure laying on my shoulders. For the next 3 months, I went all in on client outreach. Like, I was sending the worst possible Instagram DMs with memes that weren't even funny, voice memos with a shaky teenager voice. I mean, I was trying everything and got rejected 100 times over and over again. And to be honest, I felt like a pest that just annoyed people. But you know what? Every day I got sharper and sharper, and I really started to dial in my DM strategy and started to provide real value instead of just randomly pitching people that didn't even know who I was. And all of a sudden, then it happened. I've messaged an agency who finally got back to me, and then the deal was closed. And just like that, I could finally tell them that I was making money from a online business they didn't know what was, and quite frankly, I didn't knew it really either back then. I remember that was one of the best feelings in my life. I was a living proof of the things that I set my mind to could really happen. I could make it a reality. Then I was free. At that point, I was 18 years old. I wasn't tied to a job. I wasn't working for someone else, climbing ladders, pulling wires, and just feeling like it was a life sentence. The best thing, I wasn't waiting 4.5 years to really start my life. I was already living it. Because at that age, I've already chose freedom. I've built something real that I could see myself in. And I became the superhero of my own journey, not because someone gave me permission, but because I took the risk and I really earned it. So that's the story about how I got into this. And it is the story that I keep reminding myself of to give me that drive and boost of, like, I've a living and proving concept of this really can work for whoever. Like, I was just a normal kid that had normal plans, but somehow I managed to get out of it and start drawing my own story and not the one that was already like written for me. So yeah, that was it. Take care. Peace.